Welcome back to another Pirkei Avot text discussion. We having started off the second chapter with Rabbi, which is a shorthand for Rabbi Judah the Prince, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. We then get to something his son said, Rabban Gamliel, the son of Rabbi Judah the Prince. We saw actually a couple of statements of his, and even up into the first half of this fourth text, which I discussed in the previous video. Now we get to the latter half of this fourth text, and we go back in time to Hillel in the 1st century of the Common Era. Now Hillel, we had actually previously heard from in the first chapter, and he was the final pair. He was amongst the final pair, him and Shammai, from receiving whatever it was, the unspecified thing to receive in all of these pairs. Now we return to him. After digressing from the pairs, now we're going to come back. Because ultimately, what's going to happen over the course of the next few texts is it's going to be more wisdom from Hillel, and then it's going to go to who receives it after Hillel and Shammai. So here we have, throughout the first chapter, we had a lot of tripartite statements. We had a lot of sayings that had three distinct aspects of advice. In this particular saying of Hillel's, there are actually 5. So here we go. Hillel says, do not separate yourself from the congregation. Don't separate yourself from a community. Really great advice. If you're part of a community, now I will point out, none of these 5 pieces of advice have reasons ascribed to them. They have there's no further discussion, so it's not clear exactly what's his motivation, what's the experience behind these pieces of wisdom. Now, it could be, why not separate from a community or a congregation? Maybe. It provides good social support, moral support. There are many reasons. I will also point out that one can't separate from something they haven't joined. So for someone who never joined a particular community or congregation, if they leave or separate themselves, that's not really separating if you never joined in the first place. But there is a nice wisdom about not separating from a community or a congregation one has already joined. Now the second one is, do not believe in yourself, do not trust in yourself until the day that you die. This is an interesting one. Exactly what does he mean by believe? Little unclear. I suspect, yes, it's good to have a sense of trust or of faith in one's own abilities, but I think he means that don't believe that you're going to be, somehow free of sin or you'll never mess up. I think it's a little bit unclear. I will admit that. All right, the third one, the middle of these 5, is do not judge your fellow until you have reached that person's place. This is probably my favorite of these 5 in this statement, because it's easy when we see someone or hear of someone we know doing something or saying something, and we think that was not smart, or maybe that was a bad decision or something. We make our judgments. What's really wise about this piece is that he says, look, there's all sorts of situations and circumstances. If we were to be in that person's place, maybe we would understand better. In our contemporary culture, we would say, put yourselves in their shoes. Although he actually says it in a different language, which is, don't judge them until you're actually in their place. Reserve your judgment. Don't hold back from evaluating that person's actions at that time, because you don't really know the full extent of the circumstances. The fourth one is, do not say something that is not possible to be understood at the moment of it's being said, but then ultimately will be understood later on. A little unclear, but basically, why would you say something? Why would you say something that, why not just say something that will be understood what's the point of even communicating it? Maybe later it'll make sense? That's an interesting piece of advice. All right, now the 5th and final one is, do not say, when I will be free, I will learn, I will study, because what if you never are freed up? What if you don't have the leisure time? What if you don't have that time in your schedule? Obviously, this could be extended to really anything, not just study. It could be cleaning up one's house. It could be taking care of a chore. The point of this is, if you really want to study, if you really want to learn, or really, let's make it more, really it makes sense for really anything that you think is important, yet maybe not the top of your priorities, that you just have to make time for it. You can't just say, oh, at some point I'll be free, because that really puts it low on one's priority list. So if you're going to study, and perhaps I think this really means study, he means it in sort of rabbinic teachings, Torah, right? That's the particular context of this statement, right? Hillel is part of this is still before the rabbis. He's still living within the Second Temple period, and he's advocating this is important, right? This is important to even the proto-rabbinic movement. This is important. You can't just wait for time to somehow open up for you. You have to go out and make time to that. So that's that 5-piece statement. And as we'll see over the next 3 texts, it is more wisdom and advice from Hillel. All right. Thank you so much for watching.